question hangs in the air like a warning siren. What happens when a foreign industrial network gains the power to kill 70 million Americans without ever smuggling a single drug across the border? The scene is stark. Federal agents in Ohio stand over crates that look harmless containers labeled as pharmaceutical binders, industrial solvents, laboratory reagents. Yet inside them lies enough precursor material to trigger the deadliest narcotics wave in modern American history. No cartel gunmen, no border shootouts, just chemicals, paperwork, and encrypted payments, an invisible pipeline engineered to bypass every safeguard the country thought it had. And as officials would later reveal, the network was not loose or chaotic. It was precise, corporate, engineered, a machine built to feed the fentanyl epidemic from thousands of miles away. That machine is what Operation Box Cutter uncovered. Federal investigators discovered a China to Ohio supply chain quietly pumping industrial precursors into the United States disguised as legitimate trade. Reuters later confirmed that 4 Chinese chemical corporations registered in Shanghai, Wuhan, and Shenzhen were operating behind a facade of laboratory exports while supplying the backbone of America's synthetic opioid crisis. 29 suspects were charged, including 22 Chinese nationals and 3 American accomplices embedded deep in the Midwest. U.S. officials described the network not as a cartel in the traditional sense, but as a chemical manufacturing empire, one that used trade routes, logistics networks, and cryptocurrency channels the way 20th century traffickers use smuggling planes. The scale was staggering. According to federal documents, these companies shipped tons of fentanyl precursors into American cities, never once crossing with finished narcotics. This was a new model of drug warfare. No clandestine labs hidden in jungles, no border tunnels, only molecules legal, unregulated, easily disguised, flowing through the veins of global commerce. BBC News noted that the chemical process allowed traffickers to multiply potency, stretch profits, and industrialize poisoning at a scale never seen before. The chemicals were shipped to American intermediaries who mixed, pressed, and remanufactured them into counterfeit pills under cartel supervision. The suppliers sold not fentanyl, but the ability to mass produce fentanyl. The deeper investigators looked, the clearer the pattern became. This was not a rogue operation. This was industrial narcotics production using corporate infrastructure, automated shipping systems, and blockchain-based financing. Money moved in cryptocurrency. Logistics moved in mislabeled freight. Digital transactions passed through servers built to disappear. As one agent told The Guardian, everything about this system was engineered to look ordinary. Even the lies looked official. And underneath the technical sophistication lies the most critical question. In a world where chemicals, data, and payments move without borders, how does America defend itself without sacrificing the very freedoms that define it? The balance between security and liberty has never been more fragile, because if a shipment can be ordered with a keystroke, if a cartel can operate through a corporate shell, and if millions of lethal doses can be hidden inside legitimate commerce, what must the United States do next? And what happens if the next operation is even bigger? The industrial engine behind this operation begins in the heart of China's sprawling chemical sector, where factories registered as pharmaceutical suppliers quietly manufactured the molecular building blocks of fentanyl. It is here inside gleaming facilities in Shanghai, Wuhan, and Shenzhen that prosecutors say a corporate-grade criminal ecosystem took shape. These companies did not ship drugs, they shipped possibility. They exported the powders, catalysts, and stabilizing agents that allow fentanyl to be manufactured anywhere by anyone with a pill press and instructions. And as DW later reported, the shipments appeared legitimate on every document, safety labels, research certificates, customs declarations, all generated to pass international scrutiny while masking the true intent of the cargo. Every box, every invoice, every outbound freight container was engineered to blend seamlessly into lawful global trade. This seamlessness is what allowed the network to grow into what federal analysts called a chemical cartel chain, a structure far more dangerous than traditional trafficking routes. It relied on international corporate logistics rather than clandestine smuggling, enabling predictable delivery, high volume throughput, and almost no physical risk to the suppliers. The chemicals never triggered DEA alarms because they were not illegal until mixed or refined within US borders. That loophole created a shadow economy where fentanyl precursors could move as freely as everyday consumer goods. According to Defense News, the operation was also backed by a sophisticated digital architecture. The same companies exporting precursors maintained blockchain wallets and crypto gateways designed to convert cartel payments into yuan through unregistered Chinese exchanges. Funds were then reinvested into domestic assets, giving the appearance of ordinary commercial revenue. The DOJ later confirmed that over $60,000 in cryptocurrency moved monthly through these channels, small enough to avoid financial red flags, but large enough to power a billion-dollar synthetic narcotics pipeline. Federal agents described the scheme as industrialized poisoning. They stressed that the criminals did not simply cut drugs, they designed a scalable system for manufacturing them. The companies exported precursors in ton-level quantities, shipped via standard trade containers disguised as research materials for universities and laboratories. One company exported more than 18 tons of pseudo-regulated chemicals between 2023 and 2025, according to Reuters, and all of it slipped through layers of global commerce because the paperwork looked flawless. This was not an accident, it was strategy. By using legitimate global shipping firms and academic networks, the perpetrators exploited the trust built into international trade. The chemicals arrived in US warehouses, online storefronts, and middleman distribution hubs without raising suspicion. Mexican cartels then partnered with domestic chemists to transform those shipments into street-ready pills. It was, as Al Jazeera noted, a narcotic supply chain engineered with the precision of a manufacturing corporation. Yet the question remains, how does a nation confront an enemy hidden inside the machinery of global trade itself? If fentanyl precursors can be disguised as harmless solvents, if digital payments can vanish inside blockchain loops, and if industrial exporters can operate with corporate legitimacy, what must America dismantle first? The supply chain, the digital infrastructure, or the illusion that modern commerce is inherently safe? And if this is the new face of narcotics warfare, how many more systems remain invisible? Across the American Midwest, a quiet residential neighborhood became the domestic hinge of an international criminal machine. Federal indictments revealed that the global chemical pipeline did not operate through violent cartel lieutenants or hardened traffickers. It relied on ordinary homes, local warehouses, and two individuals who blended into daily life. Eric Payne, age 39, and Orion Rayford, age 24, both from Tip City, Ohio. They were not cartel bosses, they were logisticians operatives who understood shipping lanes, encryption apps, and the art of making dangerous cargo look harmless. And according to investigators, they served as the human bridge between Chinese chemical suppliers and cartel networks spanning the US and Mexico. The story of America's involvement begins here in basements and garages across Ohio, where mislabeled containers arrive by parcel delivery, each one carrying the chemical power to create thousands of lethal doses. Prosecutors allege that Payne coordinated kilogram-level shipments disguised as industrial binders, receiving them with the precision of a warehouse manager rather than a street dealer. Rayford allegedly stored packages in her residence, a suburban home, where agents later found chemical drums next to ordinary household supplies. As BBC reported, their role was chillingly simple: receive, distribute, and relay payments through encrypted channels and crypto wallets. This was the new blueprint of narcotics distribution: no street corners, no hand-to-hand deals, no public visibility. The chemicals flowed into Ohio through trade channels, were remixed under domestic cartel guidance, and then moved across the Midwest disguised as legitimate pharmaceutical products. Payne acted as the coordinator, directing local distributors, securing pill presses, and ensuring that shipments of finished counterfeit Xanax and oxycodone reached downstream dealers. Rayford, meanwhile, became the financial link funneling cryptocurrency through exchanges that blended narcotics revenue with ordinary digital commerce. It was a system built for invisibility, and as The Guardian emphasized, it depended on American intermediaries who could pass undetected through normal life. Until federal agents mapped the network, Payne and Rayford appeared to be ordinary citizens, not central figures in a billion-dollar supply chain designed to kill on a mass scale. The broader infrastructure they supported was equally disturbing. Investigators linked the Ohio hub to supply lines used by both the Sinaloa cartel and CJNG, revealing a multinational integration of Chinese chemical manufacturers, American logistics handlers, and Mexican pill pressing operations. Every movement chemical arrival distribution payment was orchestrated through encrypted messaging platforms. Every order looked like standard commerce, and every box delivered into Ohio provided the raw material for thousands of counterfeit pills pills destined for the streets of Atlanta, Chicago, Philadelphia, and beyond. This is where the strategic stakes become undeniable. As Al Jazeera observed, the threat no longer comes only from the cartels across America's borders. It comes from the infiltration of ordinary American communities by global supply networks. China produces the precursors, Mexico presses the pills, American intermediaries move the cargo, and the victims are overwhelmingly US citizens caught in the deadliest narcotics wave the country has ever experienced. The human impact is devastating. Each container received by Payne and Rayford represented the potential deaths of thousands of Americans. Entire communities across Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, and Pennsylvania have been hollowed out by synthetic opioid overdoses. Fentanyl has become the leading cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 45. Every mislabeled chemical shipment delivered to a suburban home contributed to a pipeline of destruction flowing directly into America's heartland. This raises a profound national question. How does the United States protect its communities when the front line of narcotics warfare is not a border crossing but a doorstep? What happens when global traffickers no longer rely on smuggling but on exploiting the trust embedded in everyday commerce? And if ordinary citizens can be recruited into multinational chemical cartels without ever touching a drug, what vulnerabilities remain hidden in America's vast logistics system? The digital backbone of this criminal empire was as dangerous as the chemicals themselves. Investigators soon realized they were not dealing with a smuggling ring, they were confronting a digital cartel economy, a network built on encrypted chats, blockchain payments, offshore servers, and anonymized financial channels engineered to bypass every traditional law enforcement barrier. The question that haunted investigators was simple: how do you catch a cartel that exists more in data than in geography? The scene uncovered inside C's servers answered that question with chilling clarity. Thousands of transaction logs, crypto wallet keys, encrypted chat archives, shipment tracking codes, and digital invoices disguised as scientific commerce. It was a narcotics empire that lived inside the circuitry of global trade. According to Reuters, the core of the system ran through hidden crypto gateways operated by Chinese intermediaries who converted American Bitcoin and Ethereum into yuan using unregistered exchanges. The funds then re-entered China's financial system disguised as corporate revenue. Each transaction was intentionally small: $2,000 here, $4,500 there, numbers calibrated to avoid anti-money laundering triggers. This was not chaos, it was engineering, a strategy designed to make illicit revenue look like routine scientific procurement. The FBI later revealed that one seized server in Georgia stored more than 6,000 encrypted transaction logs linking Chinese exporters to American logisticians and cartel-connected distributors. Many of those logs showed the unmistakable presence of Sinaloa and CJNG intermediaries, confirming what DW described as a multinational narcotics collaboration more advanced than anything seen in the post-Cold War era. These logs exposed a system functioning like a shadow corporation, complete with customer support lines, bulk order discounts, and automated documentation built using AI-generated templates. Even the digital paperwork was weaponized. The Guardian reported that invoices, research certifications, and laboratory labels were created using machine learning models that detected compliance weak points in US customs screening. Each document was designed to pass automated checks while disguising fentanyl precursors as harmless compounds. To customs officers, these shipments appeared indistinguishable from legitimate scientific supplies ordered by universities' biotech labs or medical research centers. The deception was so advanced that many shipments passed through multiple layers of inspection without a single human ever reviewing them. This digital infrastructure transformed the fentanyl crisis into something far more sophisticated than a drug epidemic. It became a cyber-enabled industrial supply chain. And in this new reality, the battleground shifted from streets and borders to servers, blockchains, and encrypted marketplaces. As Al Jazeera noted, the cartels did not need to hide in shadows anymore. They hid in plain sight inside the fabric of global commerce. The strategic implications for the United States are enormous. President Donald Trump's administration has already called fentanyl a national security threat on par with foreign extremism, and the digital nature of this network raises urgent questions. How can America regulate chemical imports without crippling scientific innovation? How can federal agencies track blockchain transactions without undermining privacy rights? And how can law enforcement dismantle foreign digital infrastructure without triggering geopolitical escalation with China? Beneath the technical complexity lies a simple human cost. Every encrypted payment represented future overdoses. Every falsified invoice represented families that would never see their loved ones again. This digital economy was not abstract, it was lethal. Which leads to a haunting question. If the cartels of the future operate as digital corporations, what must America become to stop them more secure or less free? And in a world where the deadliest weapons are lines of code and mislabeled chemicals, how much time remains before another digital cartel rises to take the place of the one dismantled in Ohio? The morning the raids began, federal agents moved with the precision of a military operation. Convoys rolled through Ohio, Atlanta, and New York in coordinated strikes designed to hit every node of the chemical cartel chain at the exact same moment. The goal was simple: leave no escape route, no digital backdoor, no second chance for the network to regroup. What investigators found inside those warehouses and suburban stash houses stunned even the most seasoned narcotics teams. It wasn't chaos, it wasn't improvised, it was industrial. Rows of mixers, high-capacity pill presses, vacuum-sealed containers filled with precursor powders, chemical drums arranged like factory inventory, and stacked among them encrypted servers and cryptocurrency hardware wallets holding the financial skeleton of a global narcotics empire. Then came the number that shook the nation: 139 kilograms of fentanyl powder seized. The DEA confirmed that the amount was enough to create more than 70 million lethal doses, a figure echoed by BBC, The Guardian, and multiple US agencies. It was one of the deadliest narcotics interdictions in American history. Each kilogram represented an existential threat to entire communities across the Midwest and East Coast. Each container represented the potential collapse of families, neighborhoods, and cities torn apart by synthetic opioid overdoses. The arrests were equally sweeping. 29 suspects were charged: 22 Chinese nationals, 4 chemical corporations, and 3 Americans who handled the domestic distribution chain. Interpol red notices were issued. The US Treasury froze over $3.4 million in assets connected to the Chinese firms. And as Reuters reported, this marked the first time in more than a decade that an FBI director held direct talks with Chinese counterparts over narcotics precursors, underscoring the geopolitical weight behind the operation. But the raids did more than seize drugs. They exposed the anatomy of modern narcotics warfare. Agents discovered ledgers linking the chemical shipments to Sinaloa and CJNG intermediaries, showing that Mexico's most powerful cartels relied heavily on Chinese industrial suppliers. DW later noted that this wasn't a supply chain, it was a multinational partnership. Chinese factories produced the chemicals, Mexican cartels pressed the pills, American intermediaries distributed the final product, and families across Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, and Pennsylvania paid the price. The human impact is impossible to measure. Every shipment seized prevented future overdoses. Every asset frozen disrupted the financial lifeline of traffickers. Yet for many communities already devastated by fentanyl, the damage was done long before Operation Boxcutter unfolded. Overdose deaths continue to climb. Children grow up in homes marked by addiction. First responders face trauma on a scale unseen since the crack epidemic. And as Al Jazeera noted, the synthetic opioid crisis has become a defining public health emergency of the decade. Strategically, the raids marked a turning point. They demonstrated a new American doctrine, one that President Donald Trump's administration has emphasized repeatedly: take the fight to the source, dismantle the foreign supply chain, and strike the digital arteries enabling the trade. This wasn't just a law enforcement action, it was a financial, cyber, and industrial offensive, and it signaled that the United States is prepared to confront the global networks fueling fentanyl at every level: corporate, digital, and logistical. Yet a final question remains. If this operation dismantled one of the most advanced chemical pipelines in modern history, how many more remain unseen, hidden inside servers shipping manifests and international trade? And in the race between law enforcement and global traffickers, who will adapt faster? As the dust settled after Operation Boxcutter, a stark realization spread through Washington's intelligence and law enforcement circles. This was not merely a successful narcotics bust, it was the opening chapter of a new kind of war. A war fought not on the border, not in cartel hideouts, but inside global supply chains, data pathways, and corporate logistics networks. For years, fentanyl had been treated as a domestic crisis, a tragic byproduct of addiction and local distribution. But the evidence uncovered from servers' warehouses and Chinese chemical exporters forced a fundamental shift. This was no longer a drug problem. It was a strategic threat engineered through international commerce and digital financial systems, capable of overwhelming communities faster than traditional enforcement could react. Officials across both the FBI and DEA described Operation Boxcutter as a total spectrum offensive, the first in US history to simultaneously target a foreign chemical supply, a domestic distribution hub, a crypto finance laundering system, and a cartel cartel-linked logistics chain. Reuters noted that this multi-front strategy represented a dramatic evolution in American narcotics enforcement, aligning more closely with counterterrorism doctrine than with drug interdiction. And under President Donald Trump, the operation symbolized a renewed federal commitment to confront foreign suppliers, directly cut off the chemical oxygen feeding the epidemic, and use financial warfare to choke the infrastructure that keeps traffickers alive. This shift raises serious strategic considerations. The fentanyl crisis is now woven into the geopolitics of US-China relations. China's chemical sector, much of it unregulated or selectively inspected, has become the primary global source for synthetic opioid precursors. As BBC and DW reported, diplomatic tensions have intensified as Beijing faces US pressure to regulate chemical exports more aggressively. But cooperation remains inconsistent, and criminal networks thrive in that gray zone where chemical products are technically legal but easily weaponized. From a security perspective, the US now faces an adversary with unusual advantages. Unlike traditional cartels, which rely on risky transportation routes, chemical cartels leverage global shipping systems that America depends on. Unlike street gangs, whose operations can be infiltrated, digital cartel networks are decentralized, encrypted, and geographically fluid. As The Guardian wrote, these networks can be dismantled in Ohio and reappear weeks later in Arizona, Utah, or New Jersey, assembled with new phone numbers, new servers, new crypto wallets, and new logisticians who look like ordinary citizens. Yet the human impact remains the clearest and most devastating measure of the crisis. Synthetic opioids remain the leading cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 45, according to nationwide health data. Families fractured, children orphaned, communities hollowed out. Every box of pharmaceutical binders intercepted by agents represented thousands of lives potentially saved. Every encrypted payment disrupted represented a future overdose prevented. But the scale of harm is so vast that even monumental seizures feel like holding back a flood with a single barrier. This is why Operation Boxcutter is seen not just as a victory, but as a blueprint. Federal agencies now understand that they must treat narcotics networks as multinational corporations with diversified revenue cyber operations and global logistics. And that means developing new tools, AI-driven customs, screening blockchain forensics, international regulatory frameworks, and rapid response intelligence units capable of shutting down precursor shipments before they ever reach American soil. But this new strategy comes with consequences. How far should America go in monitoring digital transactions? How aggressively should it pressure foreign governments? How tightly can the US regulate chemical imports without crippling legitimate scientific and medical industries? The balance between national security and economic freedom grows more fragile with each passing year. One truth stands above the rest. The cartels of the future will not look like the cartels of the past. Their weapons are not guns and trucks, but chemistry degrees, corporate shipping accounts, and cryptocurrency exchanges. Their power lies in invisibility. Their battlefield is the global marketplace. And so the final question becomes unavoidable. If the next fentanyl empire is already forming somewhere inside the world's supply chains, will America detect it in time, or will the next wave strike before anyone sees it coming? For viewers who want to stay informed as this global confrontation evolves, staying engaged matters more than ever. Operation Boxcutter exposed a stark new reality. The deadliest narcotics threat facing the United States no longer comes from smugglers on the southern border, but from chemical exporters, digital laundering systems, and corporate logistics networks operating across continents. The investigation revealed a China-based industrial web capable of supplying enough fentanyl precursors to kill more than 70 million Americans, all while hiding behind legitimate trade documents and encrypted financial channels. It showed how US intermediaries in Ohio served as the domestic backbone of a multinational criminal chain linking Chinese manufacturers, Mexican cartels, and American distributors. The raid seized 139 kilograms of precursor chemicals, dismantled crypto finance payment routes, and triggered global asset freezes against 22 Chinese nationals and 4 corporations. But beyond the arrests and seizures, Operation Boxcutter marked a strategic shift in US narcotics enforcement under President Donald Trump, a move toward targeting foreign supply lines, dismantling cyber-based infrastructure, and treating fentanyl networks as industrial adversaries rather than street criminals. The operation's legacy is clear. Future battles will be fought in trade systems, data streams, and financial networks. And the central question remains unresolved: can America outpace a global cartel economy evolving faster than the systems built